Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. So from here we will start our SQL journey. Before entering into the subject, just we should know the basics of SQL. So what is SQL? So today's content is what is SQL? Why we need SQL? What can we do with SQL? Advantages of SQL, variations of SQL, what is data, what is database, what is database management system, DBMS, what is relational database management system, that is RDBMS. So firstly, what is SQL? Just like languages like Telugu, Hindi, English, so SQL is also one language which is used to communicate with database. Generally, we use language to communicate with each other, with our friends, relatives, family members, everyone. Just we need to say something, we use language. So in computer, to communicate with database, we need one language. That is SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So what we can do with this language? The question comes, what we can do with this language? Yes, we can communicate with the database by using this language. So how we can communicate? We we need to write queries. In the form of queries, we use it to communicate. So SQL became a standard for American National Standards Institute ANSI in 1986 and of the International Organization for Standardization ISO in 1987. This is about SQL. Why we need SQL? So yes, as I said, SQL is used to communicate with a database. With this SQL only we can communicate. There are many languages like Python, Java, C, C hash, but the way which response which we get respond is different with different languages. Especially while using SQL, we can get our outputs very quickly and accurately. That will be discussed in the advantages of SQL. So with SQL, we can manipulate, we can create, we can update. There are different operations which can be performed that we will discuss in our further tutorials, further videos, all these things. So what can we do with SQL? As I said, why we need SQL? SQL is used to communicate with database, to update. Just these are all similar, but a little bit changes. That's it. So we can execute queries against a database by using SQL. We can retrieve data from database using SQL. So we can also update records in a database. We can insert records in database. We can create new database. We can create views. We can create a, even stored procedures in database and all these things. Generally, we will discuss all this in detail with examples of queries like statements. These will be covered in under statements. Generally, there are five types of statements in SQL: data definition language, manipulation language, data control language, transaction control language, and one more thing is one more which I said in the earlier. So we will be discuss all these things in our further tutorials. And one more thing is, what are the advantages of SQL? So the main advantages of the SQL are high speed and no coding is needed, a well-defined standard language. It will be very interactive language and multiple data views. So These are all the advantages of our SQL. So what after SQL? Here comes the question. The variations of SQL. So first, the basic is SQL. After that, we can learn MySQL, procedural SQL, that is known as PLSQL, and SQLite. So this is continuous process which continues one by one. Anyone can learn this language. So in IT, the beauty is whatever the technologies we will learn today or some other day, it will definitely helpful for us. Even we can you can ask to any some other well-wishers or who are working in IT industry with more than 5 to 6 years experience. If you ask them learning particular technology is needed, they will tell yes, whenever time permits you learn different technologies. Definitely it will be helpful tomorrow or some other days. Yeah. Now what is data? Very simple. Just data is nothing but a properties. Properties of an object is nothing but data. So if we tell in sentence formation, so it is a raw fact which describes the properties of an entity. So generally if we take an example of mobile phone, it will have some features or properties such as RAM, ROM, camera, battery, and camera pixels. All these come under the properties. If we take particular pixel 16 megapixel or 64 megapixel, coming to RAM 8 GB or 64 GB, and coming to battery 1000 mega mph or 10,000 mega mph. So the raw fact which describes the properties of an entity. Here entity is nothing but mobile phone. Properties are nothing but all these, either RAM, ROM, camera, battery, all these come under properties. Data is nothing but it is raw fact which describes the properties of an entity. Coming to what is database? It is a place where data is stored in systematic and organized manner. This is very important. Systematic and organized manner. So if we don't store in systematic and organized manner, it is very difficult to perform some operations. Generally, we perform operations, as I said in the what can we do in SQL? With SQL, we can create, update, read, delete. So these are known as CRUD operations. Create, read, update, and delete. Generally, these operations are performed on the database. So we can say that as it is a database, we need a software to maintain and manage database. Why we need a software is here two important factors. Whenever we are storing data, it is very important security and authorization. So these two are very important. So security, no one should steal our data. It will raise illegal issues. So to protect our data from illegal issues, we need a software to maintain and manage database. And one more thing is authorization, the process of giving permission to have access to something. It generally meaning of authorization. So some unknown persons, some ex persons who is not related to our organization should not get data from our database. Only authorized persons should get data from the database. So for that we need a language, that is nothing but query language. We use query language to communicate with the database management system. This is very important question. You can get in interviews. What is the language used to communicate with the database? We use query language to communicate with database. And what are the operations performed in database? The basic operations performed in database are CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. So like that, this is the information about database. Create is also known as insert, read also known as retrieve, update is also known as modify, delete is also known as drop. Whatever you want, you can say. So CRUD operations are performed in database, and we use query language to communicate with the database. This is about database. And coming to database management system, we just both are covered in the here only. So we need a software to maintain and manage database, that is known as database management system. Here we use query language, so both are covered here itself. And one more thing is relational database management system. Just it is a type of software where data will be stored in form of tables. Generally database is nothing but it is a place or a medium where data will be stored in systematic and organized manner. It is also a type of software where data will be stored in form of tables. For better understanding, we will go through it one diagram. Yeah, here you can see. So data is stored in form of tables, either rows or columns. So one second. Yeah, see, these are called as rows. These are called as rows. These are called as columns. So columns and rows. So even who the person who doesn't know even columns and rows also should understand our content. That is the reason why I am telling very clearly. So data is stored in form of rows and columns. The place where data will be stored is known as database. So we use a software to maintain and manage database is called database management system. Here we use query language to communicate with database. So RDBMS, it is a type of software where data will be stored in form of tables. Here you will get a question. Why? Why data will be stored in form of only tables? You may get a question. Does anyone know? Okay, let us discuss. Why data will be stored in form of only tables? So one more thing here, actually, just it is a whole thing is nothing but concept. It is a concept which was designed by EF Cod. EF Cod. He's he's a data scientist. He's one of the data scientists. He designed he designed that data will be stored in rows and columns. In relational model, we store data in form of tables. A database management system, listen carefully here, a database management system which follows the concept of relational model is called as relational database management system. Relational model is nothing but it is a concept. It is a concept which was designed by EF Cod. If you want note, make a note of it. It is a concept which was designed by EF Cod, who was a data scientist. So we need to communicate with relational database management system. Here we need one more language that is called SQL. Here comes the concept of SQL, structured query language. Okay, so just brief, we have discussed about all these things. SQL is nothing but structured query language. We need SQL to communicate with database. We can do certain operations like create, read, insert, update, and all those things with SQL. Advantages of SQL: faster, easy to communicate, and variations of SQL: PLSQL, SQLite, and MySQL. So data, it is raw fact which describes the properties of an entity. Database, it is place or medium where data will be stored in systematic and organized manner. Database management system, it is a software which is used to manage the database. Here we use query language to communicate with DBMS and relational database management system. So here we use structured query language. The type of software which follows the concept of relational model is called relational database management system. So today's video is that's all about it. From next video we will discuss some some more theory questions, and we will enter into the queries. We will later we will discuss about the queries. Thank you so much.